Montoursville is a small, tight-knit community, population around 5,000. When TWA Flight 800 crashed, killing 21 people who lived here, everyone seemed to know someone connected to those victims. And now, 20 years later,
the hurt's still there.
the members of the Montoursville High School French Club and their chaperones were headed to Paris for the trip of a lifetime.
I taught a couple of those kids, Larissa and Cheryl.
Cindy Wensler was a middle school teacher at the time of the crash.
It was just unbelievable that it happened, and such the scale was devastating to the community.
Wensler is now the yearbook advisor. In the years following the crash, the SOC included those students who would have graduated.
Why me dealing with such a horrific tragedy?
John Doran has been mayor of Montoursville for 34 years and vividly remembers that hot July night.
It's shock and grief, and then it's denial.
The mayor received hundreds of letters from all over the world that he's kept in these binders. Many came from fellow mayors. The mayor of Palmyra wrote at the time, "You have our prayers and best wishes and support."
This was from the ambassador in Washington.
He plans to donate them to the Historical Society when he retires. He says over the years, the community has become more caring and resilient.
Our community has come to terms with the tragedy, but I cannot say that for the families.
Many of those families don't want to talk about the tragedy. Sadly, their children, with such promising futures, have now been here in Montoursville Cemetery longer than they were alive. In Montoursville, Susan Shapiro, News 8.
This is the letter I received from President Clinton at the time of the tragedy.
Montoursville Mayor John Doran has mementos in his office he probably wishes weren't here.
This is a sketch made by one of the fathers of one of our victims.
Those victims, 16 Montoursville High School French Club members and their chaperones, were headed to Paris when TWA Flight 800 crashed. There was speculation a missile may have brought down the jumbo jet, but after a 4-year investigation, the National Transportation Safety Board blamed the crash on a fuel tank explosion.
I'd like to believe it.
The mayor says as an engineer by trade, he wants to believe the ruling. But even after 20 years, he still has some doubt.
I heard too many stories from captains on KLM, TWA captains that said that was impossible.
Others in this small town have even stronger feelings.
I thought it was terrorism back then, and I'll never give that part of it up.
Whatever happened in the skies over Long Island, many found hope in this photo where they saw an angel in the clouds.
This dome right here is the front of the high school.
Mark Tilson snapped the picture with a Polaroid camera several days after the crash from his driveway near the high school.
It just gave a lot of people peace over the whole thing.
He sold hundreds of copies, with the money going to a Flight 800 fund. The Montoursville Memorial Gardens is now a peaceful place for reflection. On the back of this monument celebrating the lives of the victims, there's the story of that angel photograph. And it says that the angel became a symbol that linked the community to those aboard Flight 800. To many, those young people were real-life angels.
They were great kids
who left this world far too soon. In Montoursville, Susan Shapiro, News 8.
The first two are of the group before they left. This is a picture of Cheryl and a friend of hers.
It's one of the last photos ever taken of Cheryl Nybert before her ill-fated flight to Paris in 1996.
I've been there.
Her father, now 74, still misses a lot about the bubbly teen.
Well, her laugh and her presence, okay. Just not having her here.
Cheryl was one of 16 members of the Montoursville High School French Club and chaperones killed when TWA Flight 800 crashed.
If I could have taken her place, I would gladly have done so. Because I was 50-some years old then. She was 16.
Cheryl picked raspberries here in what was once a thriving patch and then sold them to raise money for the trip. On the night of the crash, her parents were finishing up her orders. Don says he heard a voice from above.
She says, Cheryl is okay. She is with me. She didn't say heaven. It was implied.
Don says his mother's words helped him and his wife, who's now gone, cope all of these years. But he is still troubled by the NTSB's ruling that a fuel tank explosion brought down the plane.
At the end of the first week, I thought it was friendly fire.
Cheryl is buried here along with her classmates. The pin oak tree her family planted nearby has now grown tall after 2 decades. In Montoursville, Susan Shapiro, News 8.